we change these brakes on the 2013 Mustang rear brakes. I'm going to try to be quiet because I don't want to wake people up. It is almost 1 in the morning and it's still 70 something degrees out here in humid. So tools you're going to need. Obviously I already took the tire off. If you don't know how to take your tire off, don't be changing your brakes, please. I don't want you on the road with me. So you're going to need your new brakes. I use Power Stop Extremes. These are the Z26s. It is a Mustang. I'll get to that in a minute. You're going to need a ratchet with a 13mm socket. I recommend a short socket for this. That's the thing we need. Wire brush is a good idea to clean off some of the grime. Some sort of brush thing you can stick inside the guide holes. And of course your hardware for your brakes, which should have come with your brakes. They do come with the Power Stop brakes. Brake fluid. 2013 Mustang uses .3, as most cars do. I went ahead and siphoned out all the brake fluid that was in the reservoir, and I'm going to siphon out the rest of it after I push the calipers in and replace it with new ones. You should really flush your brakes though. Brake and caliper grease. Brake cleaner. I'm in no way sponsored by any of these particular products. These are just the ones I prefer to use. I have a whole bunch of this ceramic synthetic brake component lubricant that came with the various Power Stop brake sets I've gotten. I don't normally use them because I have the other stuff. And I highly recommend for rear brakes. This is a Maddox disc brake pad and caliper service toolkit, as you can read. I actually got this from Harbor Freight. I'm still mixed on Harbor Freight as far as quality goes, but this is probably one of the most convenient tools I've ever gotten, and you'll see how to use it in a minute. But basically, these pistons and a lot of other American companies, the back piston is a screw type, so it screws in, and there's other tools you can use, but this is by far the easiest. I literally just bought this yesterday and used it for the first time on the other side of the car. I wanted to try it before I made the video. Easily one of the best things I've bought for working on my car in a long time. Alright, so let's get to work, shall we? Things I recommend, but you don't actually need. The 22mm you'll see is for the caliper toolkit, and I recommend gloves and having shop towels handy. Make sure the ratchet's going in the right direction. So as I mentioned, I already did the other side, so one thing I'm not going to put on the video because you should know how to do this. Open the cap on your brake reservoir, otherwise you could break it when you push the calipers out and it wants to force all the oil out. So once you get the bolts loose, you can just take them out by hand. Actually, I'm going to recommend keeping the bottom one in. You'll see why in a minute. Again, this is my first time using this brake caliper kit, or tool kit that I got, and that's why you want to leave that one on. So you can go ahead and pull this down and pull this guide pin out, set it aside, set the bolt aside. Make sure you do this so you don't lose it. Pull your pads out. Mine weren't horrendous, but I'm going to go on a long road trip here with my kid in a little bit, so I just feel that I'm being safe here. take your hardware out because you can replace that. So if you're like me and you live on a dirt road or you just don't wash your car very often, you have a bunch of grime built up here. Also, I don't know if you can see it in the video. Can you see it? Yeah, you can. Cardboard box. Even through the gloves, it's nice and cold. Alright. So the way you use this, let me show you, get this on, just confused me for a minute. So let me get in front of here so I can make sure you can see what I'm doing. So this is part goes here up against your caliper. Now to get this on, I spent a good 5 minutes before I got to get this on. So got your screw in, you're going to do this, and then you're just going to slide it over there. And it goes down on this little ridge like this. This screw turns it up however much you want. So you can take this, you got these pins. The kit comes with a bunch of different sizes. This just happens to be the one that fits the 2013 Ford. Probably most Fords, I would imagine. So you take it, line up the pins with your pinholes. I don't know how well you can see that, but there's these pinholes here. So you are going to line the pins there up with your pinholes. Much easier to do with 2 hands. Alright, once you get them locked up, you're going to tighten up your bracket. So this is where your 22 comes in handy. 22mm wrench. So you want this tight so this doesn't really move around a whole lot when you're turning it. And you're basically going to turn this the opposite direction. Maybe it would have been better to keep the top one on this one. Oh yeah, you can see that pretty well, I think. So on the other side, I took both bolts off, took the whole thing off. Man, that was a pain in the ass. And I finally figured out, you know what? I'm just going to stick the pin back in, screw it back in, and at least something will be held in place. Much better. You want to be careful and make sure that you're not pulling too much on your brake lines, because you don't want to burst one of those, and you have to do more work. Alright. So think that's pretty much all the way. All right, right there. All right. So there you go. By far the easiest tool I've ever gotten for this. I would give this 6 out of 5 stars in a heartbeat. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and take this out. So if all you could do is change your pads, you don't really have to take both these bolts out. You just need to be able to take one out in order to do what we just did and push the pin back and take the pads out and put the new ones in. But I also want to re-lube and clean out my guide pin holes, because I just did like I mentioned, I'm going on a road trip, so I just did a safety inspection on it, and I noticed there was a little bit of rust in here, which concerns me considerably. So I want to clean these out. So these guide pins, if you wanted to replace them, they're only $5 or $6. Unfortunately, nobody has them in stock right now, so I didn't get them, or I would have just done that for the price. So I'm going to take this little brush. I found it in my garage. I don't really know where it came from or what it was used for, but it's meant for a drill. Whatever. Fits in there decently. So right now I'm just going for functionality. I'm thinking my next big brake job will probably be replacing the calipers anyway, and then I'll be painting them. So So be careful when you're spraying in that hole if you don't have a straw, which I noticed that none of these cans had the straw in them anymore. Is there a reason for that? Is this a California thing? Did they outlaw straws on spray cans? I don't know. I'm going to have to figure out how to replace those. Alright. Let this all dry off for a second. Go drink a little bit of soda. And by the time I get that drink in, this will all be dry, then we can grease it up. I'll be back. That was delicious. Alright, let's do it this way. Oh. So, my dad taught me there's 2 times when it's okay to swear. When you stub your toe and when you're working on a car. And in fact, if you're not swearing when you're working on your car, you're doing something wrong. That fucking hurt like hell. I almost wonder if I just broke my nail. Oh well. So, I'm done with this. I am going to caliper grease. So you want to make sure you get a little bit of a bead on here because it'll help keep the water out of them. I think I may have slacked on this a little bit last time I changed my brakes. May have been the problem. So I don't know how well you can see it on there, but there's a flat edge on there. That sits up against this flat edge here, so I just kind of try to rotate them back into that position after spinning them around a couple times to get the grease inside real good. Alright. So here's the thing I'm doing differently. Nice new brakes. Same ones that I showed you earlier. Now, hardware. So you don't need a lot of it. There we go. So I'm basically putting it on the contact points. So yes, they literally just drop in place on here. It's pretty cakey. So this is something else I also do a little bit differently. So on the back of this, and what most people do, I notice, is they go ahead and grease up the back of the brakes. That's just a lot of grease. This is probably why I have so many packets of this stuff remaining around. I just grease up the part of the calipers that actually touch it. A little bit of grease on these. Big bolts back in. Right. So this could be normal because your piston's still all the way in. So the thing that's left to do is throw the tires back on, and gotta make sure that you grease up your rotor real well. Recommend Vaseline. Disclaimer, I don't really recommend that. I just saw a meme and thought it was funny. It's funny because it's like 1 in the morning, so everything is funny. Don't do that though. Very bad. So also just put the tires back on, check the brake reservoir in the engine, and then take around, break the brakes in. Always after you do this, even if you don't break your brakes in, I mean, really they kind of get broken in by driving. Every single brake has a different pattern, or a different break-in method, or what's a bedding method. But no matter what you do, as soon as you get in your car, before you even turn it on, push your brake pedals until they feel tight to make sure that that piston is pushed all the way in, because you don't want to get on that road, pull out of your driveway, and all of a sudden have no brakes because you didn't prime them. Another thing I noticed, because I know somebody's going to mention it, I didn't turn my rotors. So, never mind. The other wheel's on the ground, so I can't spin them. I was going to try to be funny. It failed. These don't feel too bad. I'm not too stressed over it. There's no gouges, there's no heavy grooves in them anywhere. They're not groovy, baby. So I'm not too worried about it. I usually just replace them. So basically every other brake change, I replace my rotors too. Alright. I'm going to put it back together and test her out, make sure she works, and call it a night. I hope you learned something. Brakes are cake. There's no reason we should be paying $400 of labor for somebody to change our brakes. Get the parts off Rock Auto, Amazon. I got these off Amazon, mostly because Rock Auto couldn't get them to me before my trip. Otherwise, they are cheaper. But you know, Amazon Prime, next day delivery. Yeah, I'm not going to argue. Alright, if you have any questions, feel free to ask below. Most rear brake changes should be very similar. Maybe some minor differences. And remember, always safety first. Use a jack, not a jack stand. A jack stand is only there because, well, I just didn't feel like taking it out. What's the point? Wear gloves. I do recommend wearing safety glasses when you're spraying everything, just because you don't want that stuff.